Call this meeting to order, please. Let the record reflect that all members of the council are present. I need to move quickly to the approval of the agenda. Do you have a motion?
Make the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley and a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Adcock. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now regarding the approval of the consent agenda, I think we have a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that item G, utility deposit update, be removed for general discussion and make it item number 9 under new business.
Yes, sir, I have a motion to move item G to number 9 on new business. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Malcolm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Give me 1 second, please. Gotcha. Should we move it to number 6 or number 9? Because it's number 9, it's after executive session.
Yeah, it'll be number 9.
Okay. Okay, now please need a motion to approve as amended.
So move.
A motion by Mr. Little, a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ross Bradley. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now we move to the public presentation. I've asked Walton County Relay for Life to join us tonight and explain a little bit about what they've done in the past for Walton County, also to tell us about some of their new goings-on. Carrie Brooks is a recent newly moved family to Highland Avenue, just down from Ross Bradley. And I've asked her and Tim to come join us and tell us a little bit. So please take the floor. You have about 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Howard and City Council members, for allowing us to come speak with you this evening. I'm a teacher at Walnut Grove Elementary School. I am a performer with Onstage Walton Improv Troupe here in Monroe. I'm a resident of downtown, and I am a 3-time tongue cancer survivor. I am also this year's event lead for Walton County's Relay for Life. Last year was my first relay ever, and I left that relay thinking, ooh, we could make this so much bigger and better. We could make this really a community-enriched, involved, bigger, better event. I remember looking out into the crowd during the Survivor Lap and seeing a woman who had only found out a week before that her cancer was back. And I thought to myself, wow, look at her. She's got all this strength. Her smile is contagious. Her family is cheering her on. Her children are cheering her on. And I thought that's what Relay is about. It's about a community coming together, family, children, making that person feel that way if it's only for just that moment. So I lived in this cancer crazy fear that wouldn't allow me to participate, and that's just silly. So my vision, my goal for this year's relay is to give people that moment to make it bigger, better, community strong, and family involved. On March 9th, we will have a tent at the Walton EMC Community Barbecue where we will be celebrating survivors. At the Cotton Cafe, we will also be able to sign up survivors. We want them to come out. We're trying to get more survivors registered at the event this year. During the month of April, all downtown throughout the flower boxes, you will see wooden ribbons decorated by the children of Walton County Schools to symbolize the excitement as we move forward to this event on May 3rd at George Walton Academy this year. I leave you with this. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. Don't we want to be that friend in the community? A community coming together in the spirit of strength and caring for each other. I'm going to let Timothy talk about where the money goes in Walton County.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. So I get to work alongside Carrie.
It is a community event. It's led by community members. My role from ACS is to just support them and kind of help with the data. And so my favorite phrase that I love to use is from Dr. Seuss that says, unless someone like you cares an awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's just not. And what I have seen as I have spent about 6 to 8 months in this community is you are a community that cares. I've met some of the nicest people, but from a bird's eye view for ACS, in 2016, about 75% of every dollar given to the American Cancer Society went to fund our mission, which left us with about 25% to go for staff and for actually fundraising and the materials that we need to put on our events. But this is what I love. When I took on this role at ACS, that was one of my first questions, was where does every dollar go looking at a nonprofit? In 1 year's time, we have moved that needle from 75% of every dollar to 79% of every dollar. We are truly looking at where we are spending our funds. Less than 5% now goes to management and general expenses. So we're putting it back into the community and sharing it with those who need it. But on the level ground, on local ground, Relay for Life and our missions programs, I ask you all, how many of you know of our mission, Road to Recovery? Does anyone know about Road to Recovery? So Road to Recovery is a very simple program where insurance dollars are great for the services for medical personnel, for medical treatment and things of that sort, but what about getting to and from treatment? And we team up local residents with other local residents to get them to and from their medical appointments. In that, last year we gave 22 rides to and from life-saving appointments. We gave 4 flights to life-saving treatments to and from, flights that included both the patient and a caregiver. We helped 11 patients with wigs and what our program's called Look Good, Feel Better. And we also gave 192 nights of free hotel stay at our own personal hotel that we call Hope Lodge over in Atlanta. And that number is actually larger when you consider if someone travels outside of the state. And then lastly, we have a 1-800 number staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by live individuals that can help someone at any time with cancer. Because I don't know about you, but if I get cancer tomorrow, I don't know what step 1 is. And so I'll close with this. 1 in 2 women, 1 in 3 men will develop cancer in their lifetime. But the very cool thing is, since 1991, we have seen a 26% reduction in cancer deaths. That's over 2.3 million lives saved. So I just ask you to consider partnering with us. There's more to it than just giving dollars. There's volunteerism. There's ways to get involved in that way. So I'd love to meet with any of you that have any other questions, but I just say thank you for your time and your generosity tonight.
Thank you, Timothy. 2 questions.
Yes, sir?
First, what's your last name?
Carithers.
I didn't want to guess, and I would have guessed wrong. Secondly, does anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Carithers or Ms. Brooks? We appreciate you coming in. We wish you the best of luck. And May 3rd is the day of the event.
Yes, sir.
I'll see you there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming in. Prior to moving to the public forum, I just want to confirm something with Mr. Rosenthal. Paul, we said item G on the consent agenda was to move to number 9. Do we need to make a remotion because it should have been item I? Or can we just change that administratively?
Ask that question one more time, I'm sorry.
We said to move item G from the consent agenda to number 9 after our executive session, and it was supposed to be item I.
I think it's item 9.
I think it'd be item number 9 under new business.
Okay.
Item number 9 under new business. So I think your motion was fine.
Okay. Then we're done.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Moving to the public forum, we have 2 here to speak tonight. First, Mr. Patterson. Harold was quite involved with our Veterans Memorial, and you know how much I appreciate you, but I'm glad you're here. What you got?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, council members, I have just a couple of real quick questions here. We've got an awful lot of activities scheduled here in Monroe, as I'm sure all of you have your own copy of the document. But my question tonight is, looking forward for some holidays we have here this summer. We've got Memorial Day, the end of May, and we have July 4th, and I don't find any activities scheduled. I know typically we shoot off some fireworks, and that's supposed to be our celebration. But traditionally, I think at least on July 4th, there used to be parades. Looking at the internet, it even said that was a time for political speeches. I don't know if we've got any political speeches lined up, but just a question. Are we going to do anything more to celebrate either Memorial Day or July 4th that I don't know about yet?
Regarding the plans for the 4th, we are still working on those. For Memorial Day, I don't think we have anything immediately planned. But we talked the other night about scheduling more for the 4th. That has not all come to fruition yet, but I'm sure we'll discuss that more.
Just as a side note on that, the city of Loganville has canceled their July 4th parade already. They're not going to have one this year.
Okay.
There. It's just a little disappointing we don't do something more to recognize the veterans and our departure from Great Britain.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Patterson,
Sir.
think, if I remember correctly, I think it's the VFW who's hosted a Memorial Day program at the cemetery, at the Memorial,
The American Legion, not the,
American Legion, I'm sorry.
yes, sir.
Later on. And I would expect them to do that again this year, and of course, we would certainly support that.
Okay, I don't know if the Monroe Legion will do that again or not.
I know,
Uh,
I've supported that past years.
Yeah,
When they-
yeah, they have some in the past. I participated in it some then.
And if they're not doing it this year, maybe we should look at doing something, other program if they're not doing that.
The Loganville American Legion always sponsors their Ride for America on that day. And of course, they always come through Monroe. I'm trying to get them, when they come back, the 300 to 400 motorcycle riders, I'm trying to get them to stop at our new Veterans Memorial Park. They're actually having their meeting tonight, but at this point, don't have any confirmation that they'll do that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming in. Joy Wilson, connect the dots, make the connection. Hey, Joy. Thank you for coming in.
My name is Joy Wilson, and firstly, I would like to say thank you all very much for this public platform to be able to have the opportunity to open some type of legitimate, effective line of communication with people who are leaders. I am officially the founder of a business called DAGRIP, D-A-G-R-I-P, and the slogan is Get One, W-O-N. And it's all about breaking the spell of ignorance within communities. And I'm doing that through literature, volunteer, charity work, and entertainment. Connect the dots, make the connection. Opening to establish a formal yet effective line of communication that is legitimate and beneficial, that inspires commitment from opportunities that are needful to gain resources for survival and a safe, enjoyable life. With initiative, putting forth steps as stepping stones in place of stumbling blocks in order to build and encourage trust, firstly, and morely, which minimizes risk for a gamble that reduces opportunity for valid needs to be met, can be a useful form of respect and courtesy for others as business consumers and owners to grow. It is an effective pattern that helps to bring about whatever necessary change is. With preparation that meets opportunity, because resources are important. as value. Just like information provided that can hold its weight with validity in order for specific needs to be met. Thank you for your time. Connect the dots, make the connection, and Happy New Year from DeGrip.
Thank you. We always appreciate your coming in, Ms. Wilson. Moving to, excuse me, old business, Mr. Stone, 1600 East Church Street.
Yes, currently, the applicant would like to address the council. He's had some new information that we just received probably 7 minutes ago, so if you don't mind.
Mayor, council, thank you for the time to speak. I'm actually here today on behalf of KFB Enterprises, Inc., the developer, to request that we table this matter for 60 days. LGI has backed away from the deal. We are fielding interest with other builders at this time. We believe the layout will remain exactly the same. We need the time to be able to get the elevations in place, get everything ready, to come back and present back to the city council. So my request at this time is just to table the issue for 60 days.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
I do have some comments, Mr. Mayor. You know, we've been dealing with this situation now for 3 months, I think. It's in my district. I have real concerns about how this project gets developed. And I had an extensive meeting with Mr. Giles to discuss it and discuss the various options and how to move this thing forward and have it work. And I think in our discussion, we sort of came to a mutual conclusion that LGI probably wasn't the developer that would do it the way the city needs it done and the way our citizens need it done. So I came to the meeting tonight fully prepared to move to just deny the rezone at this point. But if these folks could find the right developer, the project has merit, but it's got to be done right. So at this point, I'm prepared to make the motion to table it for the 60 days pursuant to Mr. Giles' request.
Thank you. We have a motion to table by Mr. Dickinson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Larry Bradley. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That's tabled. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you all.
Yes, sir. Moving to new business, we have appointments for our tree board. Miss Elaine Oaks. Miss Elaine Oaks would like to continue to serve on the tree board. Her current term expires March 1st, 2019. I do need a motion to reappoint Elaine Oaks to the tree board for a 3-year term to expire on March 1st, 2022.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion by Mr. Dickinson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Malcolm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Brian Thompson would like to continue to serve on the tree board. His current term expires March 1st, 2019. I need a motion to reappoint Brian Thompson to the tree board for a 3-year term to expire on March 1st, 2022.
So moved.
Mr. Ross Bradley with the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Little. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Mr. Darrell Stone would like to serve on the tree board. Mr. Stone will replace Jeremiah Still. I need a motion to appoint Darrell Stone to the tree board
So moved.
for a 3-year term
So
to
moved.
expire on March 1st, 2022. And I have a motion by Mr. Dickinson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Malcolm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Glad to have Ms. Oakes back and Mr. Thompson back, and Mr. Stone, we appreciate your coming forward as well. Need an approval next for the fireworks agreement, Mr. Probst.
Yes, again, quickly, this is for the 4th of July event. This contract is with East Coast Pyrotechnics in the amount of $15,000. They've done several of our events in the past. It's been quite successful. The show will last approximately 20 minutes.
Are there any questions for Logan? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Little. Was that correct? Mr. Bradley? Mr. Ross Bradley. A second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Malcolm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Second reading of the Historic Preservation Commission Membership Ordinance Amendment. Mr. Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a quick, brief update, this is an ordinance to change our HPC membership guidelines under Section 5438 at the request of the state to come in line with some of their model ordinancing. That's the purpose for this ordinance amendment. This is our second reading. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 54, Article 2, Section 5438 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Monroe, Georgia, regarding the city's Historic Preservation Commission membership. The mayor and the council of the city of Monroe hereby ordain as follows. Article 1, Chapter 54, Article 2, Section 5438 of the Code of Ordinances is hereby amended by deleting Section 5438 in its entirety and replacing it with the following in lieu thereof. The Historic Preservation Commission shall consist of 5 members appointed by the mayor and ratified by the city council who have demonstrated special interest, experience, or education in history, architecture, or the preservation of historic resources. Members shall serve 3-year terms. At the expiration of their term, members shall continue to serve until their successor is duly appointed. All members shall reside within the city of Monroe. In order to achieve staggered terms, initial appointments as needed shall be 1 member for 1 year, 1 member for 2 years, 1 member for 3 years, 1 member for 4 years, and 1 member for 5 years. Members do not receive a salary. 1 additional member may be appointed from the city council to serve as an ex officio non-voting member. This council member may be appointed annually by the mayor. Article 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Article 3, this ordinance shall take effect from and after its adoption by the mayor and the council of the city of Monroe, Georgia. This constitutes the second reading, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Ms. Malcolm. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dickinson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. First reading of the Performance and Maintenance Bonds Ordinance Amendment. Mr. Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance for amending Article 11 of our development regs. The old version has been included for you. Mr. Kelly did that so that you could see what we're replacing with. I'll defer to Mr. Kelly or Mr. Stone for any specific questions, but this is generally to update the way in which we take development agreements, performance bonds, and maintenance bonds from developers on new projects coming into the city. This is an ordinance to amend the development regulations of the City of Monroe, Georgia. The mayor and council of the City of Monroe hereby ordain as follows. Article 1, the development regulations for the City of Monroe officially adopted July 6, 1999, and is thereafter amended, are hereby amended by implementing the below text amendment as follows. Article 11 is hereby amended by deleting said Article 11 in its entirety and replacing it with the following in lieu thereof. Performance and maintenance bonds, Section 11.1, performance and maintenance agreement. Section 11.11, performance surety. Sub 1, when required. Sub 2, purpose. Sub 3, form. Sub A, sub B, sub C. Sub 4, amount. Sub 5, period. Sub 6, release and forfeiture. Section 11.1.2, maintenance surety. Sub 1, when required, purpose and form. Sub A, B, and C. Sub 4, the amount. Sub 5, period. Sub 6, release and forfeiture. Article 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Article 3, this ordinance shall take effect from and after its adoption by the mayor and the council. This constitutes the first reading, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions for Mr. Kelly or Mr. Stone?
I'd like to, Mayor, ask just that they would just sort of describe why this is done and what the outcome, net result of this will be.
My understanding is, and I believe Patrick had to leave briefly, but it's just to make sure it's more clear and understandable, and also gives clarity to the process.
And I can add a little bit to it. You know, there was some history where we had some trouble with some of our bonds slipping and not getting called. So it provides more structure to the agreement such that instead of there just being what I would say, standardized, bring us this performance bond, bring us this maintenance bond, the agreements will be tailored to the specific project. So for instance, we just finished up as part of the rezone, a very specific development agreement with, I don't remember the entity name, but Mr. Dixon's development. We just finished up with a very specific agreement. So the changes here give more flexibility to the code department and our office to specifically craft a development agreement that allows for the development to go forward, but really puts more strings and more assurances on the development that it will be completed correctly, and particularly that the public improvements will be finished and/or the bond being called. If you'll recall, under Mr. Dixon's agreement, there was the issue of the amenities had to be finished before COs could be issued. So it allows that additional flexibility versus before the structure really was just more rote, standardized of provide 150% performance bond, provide a 2-year maintenance bond, and off you go.
Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll revisit that next meeting. Moving to the approval of the next site contract funding renewal, Ms. Krosick.
This is the renewal of the contract, our 3-year contract with Nexsite. This is actually the approval of the funding for year 2.
Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Krosick? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I move approval of this contract.
A motion for approval by Mr. Larry Bradley. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dickinson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Sadie. And stay there. Approval of the 2019 concert series contracts for Downtown Development Authority. Ms. Krosick?
These are the contracts for the concerts this summer. We'll do 4 concerts again, May, June, August, and September.
Right. And we're still gunning for that first one on the downtown green.
Last one.
Last one, I'm sorry, September 6th.
Last concert of the year, first one that we'll have on the town green, hopefully.
And May 3rd, did you say that was Relay for Life?
It is the same date. We met and talked, and we're going to try to cross-promote, but it is the same date.
They can always come to the concert and then head over to the relay. Are there any questions for Sadie? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion we approve the contracts for the concerts downtown.
Motion to approve by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Malcolm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Sadie. Number 7, Loganville Waterline right-of-way acquisition authorizations. Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. I brought this before you tonight just so that we can get this project rolling. Didn't want to wait another month to back this up. Time's kind of the essence here. Essentially, what I'm asking for is kind of a capped amount of $20,000 for easement acquisition. I don't have an exact price. I have a pretty good estimate, and I don't think it'll reach this $20,000, but this is, for lack of a better word, kind of fluid right now as to how many easements we may have to purchase along the way on this route. But right now, I'm asking for an amount not to exceed $20,000 for easement acquisition on this project.
Are there any questions for Mr. Probst?
Look at this, the people that have been working on this on our behalf have already negotiated and they're ready to actually do the acquisitions.
So they haven't negotiated them yet. What we have done is all of the appraisals based on the easements that we know we have to acquire. There may be one or two more that we have to acquire, and there may be one or two that may fall off as this final design and engineering gets finished up. But we're pretty close. So basically, this will give them the okay to go ahead and negotiate with these property owners along the way. Most of this project's in GDOT right-of-way, which is a good thing, so it saves some money.
So when with this, they would be able to negotiate up to $20,000, I guess.
Well,
What, is that the point?
This is in the aggregate, $20,000.
Right.
Most of these easements are fairly small in length. They won't be anywhere near that, but in the aggregate, we're just looking for a not-to-exceed cap of $20,000.
Are there any more questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the Loganville Water Line right-of-way acquisition authorization.
Easy for you to say. Hear a motion by Mr. Little. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Larry Bradley. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Again, we'll come back to Mr. Probst for the Alcovey River Sewer Line right-of-way acquisition authorizations.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the same type of deal here. We just have a few less parcels. Some of the parcels are a little bit longer in length, but I'm asking for a $15,000 cap on these easement acquisitions. I don't think it will approach that amount, but I don't want to have to come back to you in the middle of the month. Just want to get this project rolling as well.
Are there any questions? Comments? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Adcock. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. I now need a motion to adjourn to executive session, please.
One more item of business.
Utility.
Aye.
Item 9, the added
Oh,
item.
I'm sorry. I had that after we come back. Okay. So, item 9 is now overhead and underground wiring policy.
Yes. At the request from last meeting, last week, we wanted to study the impacts of this policy on the R1A infill overlay that we've been kind of working on in the background and make sure that, you know, it's not going to disincentivize the goals and objectives that we have here in the planning. So what we've done is modified the cost here from $2,500 per lot or unit across the board to a $1,500 carve-out for these R1A infill 10 lots or less. It can be the lesser of $1,500 or the actual cost, okay? What we did here was we went back and studied it, Brian Thompson and I, we studied this and felt that this was at a reasonable cost to be able to get this done without, you know, putting too much of a burden on any potential developers or the city as well. So this is a non-looped feed, so the cost will be lower in that regard. So we've just amended what we talked about last week in that policy.
It was my understanding that it was determined that we could do these smaller projects in-house, with in-house design, without having to go out for a professional engineer. One thing is what could make it more advantageous
Yes, sir.
to lower the cost.
Besides the material cost for the non-loop feed, the fact that we wouldn't have to have it engineered if it's generally 10 lots or less, that's a 2 or 3 day turnaround here at the city.
So on 10 or less in R1A, we're looking at $1,500.
Yes, so everything else would remain the 2,500, residential overhead 500, and then R1A infill 10 lots or less, development cost, the lesser of $1,500 or actual cost.
Except, yeah, or the actual.
Or the actual cost, which, you know, if the developer wants us to go ahead and design that, and it comes in at $1,200.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments?
I got a quick question. How do you go down for the small amount of properties as opposed to going down for the large amount of properties?
Well, it's only for the 10 lots or less. So for instance, let's think about this development over here across from the Napa. It's not 10 lots, it's 4 lots. That was a relatively simple design and engineering on that. Very little in terms of material cost and labor. It's just a smaller footprint area. So we didn't want to charge as much money for that lot when it really didn't take as much. That being a non-looped feed as well, which saves some material costs.
So if it's a big project, then you want to charge more for a bigger project than you want to charge for a smaller project?
Well, in general, these are going to be much larger and labor-intensive with additional materials, a good bit more material. Plus, as Mr. Little stated, we have to get that engineered outside, which we have to pay for.
Do I hear any other comments or questions?
To me, this just seems much more feasible after our discussion last week and much more friendly to that developer for those smaller lots.
Right, and I think it's gonna save us, long-term, a lot of money
Right.
on design. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Ms. Malcolm. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dickinson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now, I need a motion to adjourn to executive session, please.
So moved.
Mr. Larry Bradley, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Malcolm. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We'll adjourn to executive session.